Hi, I am Colleen with Mom Teaches Tech, and I can see that you're ready to learn today, and that makes me really happy. Today, we're going to focus on a lab using Packet Tracer and configure directly connected networks. We will test our network configuration with ping. I encourage you to follow along with me using Packet Tracer yourself, pausing the video where you need to, or you could just take notes as I'm doing my configuration. And then at the end of this video, I have a challenge lab for you. So stick around to the end and we'll see if you're up to the challenge. Let's get started. Okay, I have Packet Tracer open here. I've made a few introductory notes. So we're going to start with 192.168.0.0 with a /24 network. That is a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. And just mentioning that in case you're not great with slash notation yet. So let's start by putting some devices out here in Packet Tracer. I'll use a 29. You know what? I'm not going to use a 2901 because I want to show you something a little different. What do I want to use? I think let's use this is what we're going to use. We're going to use this 4321. It doesn't matter really for this what you use, but I mean if you're working with an actual router and not Packet Tracer, you're going to have to know the way that your interfaces are named in the router, right? So this is not just gigabit Ethernet 00. It's gigabit Ethernet 0/0/0 and 001. So it's important to know that. I won't go into all of the mistakes people make in lab. So it would be here for hours if I did that. So let's just start configuring. Let's throw out a couple of switches. We're going to have two separate networks. The network on this side is going to be 192.168.0.0, and on this side we'll make it 10.0 or something like that. And then we want to throw out a PC here. We want to put a PC out on our Packet Tracer. And then we'll connect the devices straight through cable between a PC and a switch. And a straight through cable between a switch and a router. Now I want to note which interface I am connecting this cable to here, this Ethernet cable. I'm going to do gigabit Ethernet 001. And I'm telling you, please, G001. I know in Packet Tracer you can set it up to automatically show your interfaces. I'm just going to say interface G001, and then just because I want to make things easy on myself, and especially if you have an instructor who's grading like me, so if you're one of my students, label your interface and label it with the IP address that you use. So when I'm troubleshooting your network, it's easy for me. I can just look at the network diagram here. So I'm going to use IP address 192.168.0. That's, the network portion. And then I said down here, I don't want that. Oh, right here with a 255.255.255.0 subnet mask defining this network 192.168.0.0. I can use any IP address between 192.168.0.1 through 192.168.0.254. Now, it is common on your default gateway, which is what we're configuring here, to configure either the first usable or last usable interface, but just to be different and show you that it doesn't have to be that way, I'm going to go ahead and configure this interface as 192.168.0.10. And the reason I'm doing that, well, I just said why I was doing that, to show you that it doesn't have to be the first or the last. Okay, and then there we go. And then that means over here on this side, as I'm cabling this network up, we're going to cable this into and we're going to use a different network here for gigabit Ethernet 000. I'm going to label it. And for this network, I'm going to use 192.168. Of course, the dots are in between 192.168. Oh, let's say 100.01 will be, no, we'll stick with 10 over here. Just stay kind of consistent. Again, /24. That means a 255.255.255.0. And that'll put us on the 192.168.100. That's the network portion. And then we can use anything between .1 and .254 to assign to our devices. So let's go ahead and label what we're going to assign to our PCs. We're going to do static configuration here. We don't have a DHCP server, so we'll do static configuration. We're going to do 192.168. What was I on this side? 0. And then let's do 254. Use the last usable. Okay. And over here on this network, we'll stick with the same sort of idea and do 192.168.100.254 because that's our last usable IP address on that network. All right, do I have everything labeled? I sure do. That's everything I'm going to need in this network is labeled now. All right, here we have our router. We're going to go into the command line interface. Do I want to enter that initial configuration dialog? Absolutely not. It's miserable if you get stuck in there. So enable configure terminal and then interface. And look right up here, I know what interface I want to go into. It's gigabit Ethernet 001. So 0 G for gigabit Ethernet. You don't have to type out the full command. G001. That's where I want to be. IP address. You don't have to type out IP address. I'm not going to keep saying that. I use the shortcuts. Okay. IP add 192.168.0.10. We're on a /24, 255.255.255.0. And then what's our second command? We have to bring the interface up with a no shut. Oh, spell shut right. Okay, our interface is going to come up. Let's configure the other side, the G000 right now. You don't have to exit out. You can just go into interface G000 and put IP add. We're doing 192.168.100.10 255.255.255.0. No shut. Okay, our interfaces are up. It was that easy. We could take a look now. Let's take a look now in our routing table. So show IP route. This command you should memorize. Show IP route. It's going to be your friend. You can see here that the directly connected network is indicated with a C and an L. In earlier versions of Cisco iOS, you may just see the C and not the L, which is the IP address you locally configured on that interface. Okay, so just to let you know, if you're working with an older iOS, you're not going to see the L, you're only going to see the C. Here it tells you, so you configured this with the .10, 255.255.255.0. The router knows that that is the 192.168.0.0 network. That's the network ID. It knows that from what you've configured on the router. And it tells you the gigabit Ethernet interface. Sorry, gigabit Ethernet interface that you're connected to there. And then we have the 192.168.100.0. You can see we used 192.168.100.10 directly configured on the gigabit Ethernet 0/0/0 interface. It automatically recognizes the network that is in. Okay, there's our directly connected networks in our router. It's that easy. Now we just need to configure our PCs so we can test our configuration. In Packet Tracer, you know, it's a simulated environment, so we'll set up our static IP address here. We're going to use, I said last usable, so 192.168.100.254. It's a 255.255.255.0. Our default gateway is our way off the network. And for this network, our way to get off of the network, to send packets off the network, is 192.168.100.10. That's what we configured on our router's interface. And since that is the way off this network, that's our default gateway. Over here on this PC, desktop, IP config, 192.168.0.254. And our default gateway on this side is 192.168.0.10. Test our network here real quick. Go to the command prompt, ping. We want to ping over to, well, it's labeled as PC0, so we're going to ping 192.168.0.254. It's going to go through an ARP. If we've configured everything correctly, we get a response. Beautiful. All right. So my challenge for you is to do this configuration, but use a different network. Let's say you go ahead and instead of using 192.168.0.0 over here and typing in my commands exactly, why don't you go ahead and use, for this side, use 10.0.0.0 with a /24. And then on this side over here, what the heck, use 10.0.0, no, not 0, 100.0 /24. I know it's not a big difference, but it's an easy way to test and see if you've understood these commands, see how many of them you can remember. Let me get rid of some of this stuff. All right, so here I've just deleted all of my information. I've laid this out for you for the challenge packet tracer. Go ahead and do this. You can upload it to comments and I'll try to check them and see how you did. If you have questions, post your questions. I'd love to hear from you. I'll end it right here. And remember, if you've learned something and you got something out of this video, then we're winning. Keep winning, and I'll hope to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.